أما اتكل على الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والسماء ذات البروج واليوم الموعود وشاهد ومشهود. قتل أصحاب الأخدود النار ذات الوقود إذ هم عليها قعود وهم على ما يفعلون بالمؤمنين شهود. وما نقموا منهم إلا أن يؤمنوا بالله العزيز الحميد الذي له ملك السماوات والأرض والله على كل شيء شهيد. إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار. ذلك الفوز الكبير. إن بطش ربك لشديد. إنه هو يبدئ ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد. هل أتاك حديث الجنود فرعون وثمود بل الذين كفروا في تكذيب والله من ورائهم محيط. بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, Brother Mustafa, for that beautiful recitation. On behalf of his learned scholar, Sheikh Abdul Latif Birri, Sheikh Dr. Ibrahim Kazarouni, Chairman of the Board Hajj Kamal Sharara, and the entire IIOK family, we welcome you to our nightly Ramadan English program. Before I introduce tonight's special guest and renowned scholar, Sheikh Dr. Ibrahim Kazarouni, there are a few program announcements I need to make. We kindly request you silence your phones and refrain from speaking during the lecture so everyone may benefit from its educational purposes. Tonight's lecture, as well as previous lectures, can be viewed at our website, iiokonline.org. The Islamic Institute of Knowledge will be giving away 3 iPads during our English program. Participation requires individuals to pay close attention and be able to correctly answer a designated question related to the lecture. The correct answers will then be entered into a drawing at the end of the week for the prize giveaway. Only 1 drawing per family, please. Following tonight's lecture, we will have a question and answer session. We encourage everyone to participate. Our featured speaker, Sheikh Dr Ibrahim Kazarouni, is currently a professor at the University of Detroit Mercy teaching world religions. Sheikh Kazarouni holds a PhD in philosophy with a concentration in religion and social change. Sheikh Kazarouni studied at the seminaries in Al-Najaf, Iraq and Qom, Iran. Please help me welcome to the podium Sheikh Dr Ibrahim Kazarouni with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطاهرين وصحبه المنتجبين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Come on, brothers and sisters.
ثانية على حب الزهراء. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثالثة بأعلى أصواتكم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Sisters, brothers, colleagues, friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فبما رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك. O Prophet, it is through mercy of Allah that you are gentle with them. Had you were rough and hard-headed, they would have dispersed from around you. Al-Imran 159. As usual, every night I begin by a brief recap of the major points that I raised last night, and then I'll go to the main topic. The theme for last night's conversation was Quran and the critical role that it should play within our lives. I indicated that if we were to ask Quran to define itself or distinguish itself, the number of verses that exist in the Quran clearly identifies Quran as a book of reference, a living manual, guide to believers, and so on and so forth. These are the verses that I cited last night. Once we understand how desperate humanity is today in search of a role model to imitate, a path to follow, some instruction, a guide towards how to choose or be able to be guided to the truth compared and falsehood. We see how critical the role of Quran can be in such a society, in the light of it being the living memory. Because when we look at Khutbah Sha'baniyah, that I took a piece from it when it came about Quran, the command is directed to people rather than believers. So it means that the Quran is supposed to be all the instruction within the sermons to all people. Tonight I want to move on, and I left you with a pondering question last night. If we have the wealth of evidence to support that Quran should play a major role in our community, why is it that in practice we have abandoned it, in a sense that we have designated Quran to be read only rather than contemplated, and then only a specific time? We can see Quran being used when marriages are being officiated. It's present. We see Quran when people are dying at the last moment of burial, somebody recites Quran and we think about Quran. We see Quran being recited only during the month of Ramadan. However, rest of the year, this important, critical, as I said, living manual for our lives are ignored, left in a pouch on the shelf, totally ignored. Tonight I want to again go back to Sermon of Sha'baniyah and pick up another piece from it. But this piece is critical with the situation that we have today, and we are as Muslims confronted within it. Look around you in the world, what do you see? The images that are being presented by Islam is dictated by the violent bandit group of people that have access to the media with the existing agenda. They don't look at what we call quote-unquote ordinary people. These anomalies are being used as the representative sample for the entire Muslim community. You name it, all the media outsourced here, small group of people committing a crime immediately splashed all over the media and the screens, and it becomes the framework, the criteria by which the rest of the Muslim world are being judged. What should we do? Certainly most of us have no access to the media the way these extreme mercenaries have, the wealth, the media, and everything else. They spend huge amount of money recruiting people who specialize in this field. Where does the money come from? Who's supporting them? That's a different issue. It needs a political philosophy class, but not now. But what we have is we are confronted with this image. We either accept the image that the media is giving to us based on the agenda that they have, or we have to come up with a formula, a strategy that would counter it, not only react to it, it is on the offensive. We go on the offensive. And this is again another piece in the sermon of Nahj al-Balagha, Husnul Khulq, to be well-mannered in your society. The society that has no understanding of your theological principle, your political philosophy, your ethical and moral issues, the overlap point between their society and your values, etc., etc. They have the background music, these images that are being presented in the media, and then look at you, look at us to see how we react. If we do anything that underlines that image, then that's it. If we counter it by a way that they are not expecting, then we have a chance to tell them that these minorities do not represent us. Before I go to the hadith, I need to explain few things which I believe briefly I have dealt with in the past, but again, for the sake of clarity of my assessment tonight, I need it. Number one, we indicated 4 or 5 nights ago that right going back to the early history of humanity, even Greeks and before them, we have similar kind of ideas in Sanskrit and other nations. The debate on whether the intrinsic nature of human being is in isolation or in a social structure. If the intrinsic nature is isolation, individualistic, you have to live by yourself, then bringing these humans that are supposed to be living in isolation into a social structure is a force that has to be imposed. But if, on the other hand, living in a social structure is an inherent, intrinsic part of this human existence, then living in isolation becomes an anomaly that has to be justified. I indicated that at least from Greek philosophers coming down, whether the Hellenistic Christianity that moved on to the Jewish community, to Islamic community, to the whole formation of political science and philosophy and political theory, the basic assumption is that humans are social animals, or as Aristotle says, a political animal. Political in his definition means to live in a social structure. Then humans have to live within a social structure to be able to develop themselves. Not only to address their intimate needs, but also to discharge their responsibilities towards the other members of the community. That's the first point. The second, Islam as a religion that clearly indicates and repeatedly states that I am a way of life, not some theoretical belief, not abstract human development. I am a way of life that addresses individual responsibility and the relational part with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equally as much as stresses on the social behavior and the relationship that we have with each other and with the world around us. From an Islamic point of view, social structure and establishment of individual relationship within this social structure is as important as prayer, fasting, and anything else. Because everything, those who are familiar with at least not only the Islamic ideas, with some Middle Ages Christian ideas, even Aquinas and Newton in the West, they considered the universe the open book of the mystery of the God. And they searched for the mystery in the research that they did. Philosophers did it within their own field. Engineers and doctors and so on did it with their own field. What we have is, within this creation, is the image of the divine. And we have to go around, establish our relationship with people within it. The third point that I briefly touched upon it again 3 nights or 4 nights ago. What is the desired community? When I was unpacking the desired marriage structure, I clearly indicated that from an Islamic point of view, marriage is an institution that has been developed not only to fulfill our intimate materialistic need, but to create a unique, coherent structure that becomes the miniature scale of that ideal society that Islam wants to establish as a flag bearer of justice within human society. لقد أرسلنا رسلنا بالبينات وأنزلنا معهم الكتاب والميزان ليقوم, so that people establish justice. the basic element, the basic unit, the miniature scale of that society was supposed to be the family structure. And I clearly remember those nights that I insisted that if those structures are devoid of justice and equality, that small structure will fail to deliver its mission when it comes to the collective. What is the desired society? If we search through the documents and the volume of literature that we have, we come across two major elements. First, absolute respect to the right of the members of the society. You can't have a just society if habitually we disrespect and violate each other's right. And I remember those nights I indicated that from an Islamic philosophical or social structure, there are two basic rights that cannot be violated. Number one, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Every human being intrinsically has a degree of honor and dignity as part of his or her life, as a human being. The founding fathers of this country were not the one that created or somehow coined the idea. It comes from somewhere else. Islam says every human being, irrespective of faith, they deserve respect because there is an inherent value, inherent karama, inherent izzah, inherent honor and dignity within them. The second one is the value or the honor and dignity that comes with faith. That every person who says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, you have to protect four concepts within that person's life. Honor, wealth, life, and character. This is why we have so much emphasis in Islam on eradication of what we call sins that have negative consequences and removes trust from people and violates the honor and dignity and the character of an individual. Backbiting and slander, etc., etc. So number one is the respect that we should give for human being, and we cannot violate a society that is expected to be a desired society must have absolute respect for everyone's life. Every member of the community, a human community, has these rights and cannot be violated. You find it very difficult these days when you see these images. Marauding, how can I put them? Buffoons, probably better ways of explaining these people. Entering into cities and literally destroying every bit of civilization that exists within it, under the name and the banner of Islam. Where is this then, the honor and dignity for everyone? Karramna bani Adam. The tragedy is that they use Quran to justify themselves out of context. A snippet of one verse in some obscure context that was revealed is taken as a general law, a universal law, to apply it to construct a new philosophy of violence. Number two, the sense of responsibility towards each other. The Holy Prophet declares, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. There is a synthesis, a direct relationship between individuals that we simply cannot pass the crisis that exists within our society and ignore it as if nothing is happening. Step over it. We have youth problem, we gingerly walk around it as if it doesn't exist. We have family problem, violence within the family, we try to put something in our ears, I hear no evil and I see no evil. We have crisis of identity within the community, we deflect it to salat and prayer and fasting and something else as if they don't exist. You cannot be part of desired or preferred, or Medina Fadla, as Farabi said it, or the city of God, as Augustine calls it, or the city, the best city, the ideal city of the Greek philosophers. If you see crisis existing within the society and you simply walk around it as if they don't exist. So how should we respond? The verse that I started with clearly defines that strategy. Thank you very much. فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُ. If it wasn't for the mercy of Allah, that you became so gentle with them. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you had a hard, steel-headed and hardened heart, and you had rough policy to deal with as a strategy, they would have run away. This is the method. A clear strategy now develops. Khulq and well-mannered approach within the society, particularly a society that has no clue of our principles, values, philosophies, theology, or anything else. Before we open our mouth to say who we are, what we stand for, what is our basic values, they look to the way that you behave. If you come across arrogant, condescending, disrespectful, and so on, this image stays. No matter how much wording, abstract definition you give, it's not going to work. Because action speaks louder than word. And that's why Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq sallallahu alayhi, in an advice to his followers, says, be or represent our values by your deed, not by the word and the philosophical development. Exist, be that individual. Once you are the embodiment of those values, then we can stand up and say, okay, if our society is just, if there are no, say, violence within our society, whether in the institution of marriage or outside, if there are no corruptions, if we have absolute control on our characters, if we become the embodiment of all the values that we have, as well as being well-mannered, how do we approach others? What language we choose to address them? How do we greet them? How do we protect their rights, etc., etc.? As the verse of the Holy Quran, even the hardened enemy is going to become your friend. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ. Emotion, bonding of emotion becomes the first thing. If we look at the history of Islam, we don't need to go that far. Go back to the life of the Holy Prophet. Unfortunately, like the Quran that we read very quickly through it without contemplation and reflection, had anything to do with Seerah and Sunnah of the Holy Prophet very quickly as a story without reflection. The early period of Islam, what happens? The Holy Prophet is living in Mecca. There is a particular spot on his way to go to the Masjid al-Haram, in which an old lady, one of the Quraysh or Meccan, kept throwing ashes on his head. Somebody does that to us today, we blow up the world. They just, by looking slightly in a different manner, and you become irritated. One day he walks to go to the mosque, no ash, nothing. Immediately, instead of going, thank God there are no more of this trouble, asks what happened to the old lady. They say, well, she's sick. Let's go and visit her. This action speaks louder to the essence of Islam. When we ask, our Imam says, or even the Holy Prophet when he was asked in Masjid, what is the essence of Islam? Husnul khulq, being well-mannered. The guy goes around and comes back, Ya Rasulullah, what is the essence of Islam? Repeats it. Islam, the essence of Islam is to develop some kind of confidence that as a strategy and work, you respect and you show respect for others. It's become a cliche now in Christianity. They have this, Islam has, we have it in Christianity that says, do to others what you like to be done to yourself. In Islam, similar narratives exist. We expect respect from everybody else, but we find it very difficult to reciprocate. Islam says, do it first. Don't expect anything in return. This is a radical shift in one's morality. Not wait until others greet you with respect, then you respond. You initiate the greeting. Husn al-khulq, one of the aspects of it is this. The sense of responsibility that we're supposed to have, that it's a community. We either, again, I'm reminded of a statement made by Martin Luther King during the Civil Rights Movement, when he was addressing himself to the white racist community that still exists in the United States. And he said that it's a human community. We either live together like brothers and sisters, or we sink and die like fools. What Islam wants from us, the way Islam describes this, let's not call it beloved community, at least preferred community, is that they should live side by side with absolute commitment to each other. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. This respect must exist. Verse in the Holy Quran repeatedly refers to the Holy Prophet and commends him for his not being a prophet, for his well-mannered approach to the deliverance. وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. The best of manner. Or himself saying, بُعِثْتُ لَأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me so that I complete the principle of ethics. أمرني ربي بمداراة الناس كما أمرني بأداء الفرائض. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded me to deal with people with compassion in the same manner that He has instructed me to offer my prayer. You see the relationship between the social responsibilities and the fara'id or personal responsibilities. We cannot isolate our responsibility with the divine from the social responsibility that we have with our own community, let alone in a multicultural, multifaceted society that we have to propagate and tell others who we are. The best language, remember a few nights ago I said, we were discussing this with Haj Kamal, every community, particularly in a multicultural society, needs to address these 2 points. Number one, self-understanding. Literally, we need to pay attention to the values and thoughts that we have. Who are we? What we stand for? What is the system of belief that we have? And then be able to develop the second one, self-expression. How do we take this message that we are convinced of it, or the society is convinced of it, to those who are not familiar? We can either do that through constructing a set of narrative, abstract ideas and language, or behave like it. And if we can embody the essence, the spirit of those laws, that speaks much louder than anything else that one could imagine. There is another hadith that says, You may not be able to force people, or at least people may not get content with your wealth, but certainly they will be content with your well manners. We talked about this in a small scale, and the family, we said that a beloved family or an ideal family or desired family has one of the characteristics that it has to be a center of tranquility and peace. The language should be language of love and affection and respect. That has to be translated in the macro level between the community around us. Akhlaq, no wonder the Holy Prophet says, أيها الناس من حسن منكم في هذا الشهر خلقه كان له جوازا على الصراط. Whoever struggles hard to correct and restructure his or her own manners and ethical values, there is a pass, metaphorically speaking, there is a pass for them on the day of resurrection. The notion of one body, we see it in a number of narratives. مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم, that uses the notion of the believers as one single body. In the same way that in the body, any ailment that affects a small part, the whole body reacts. We cannot imagine shortcomings within our society and ignore it. So as a strategy, even Musa, when he goes to Harun to deliver the message and inform him that he is the messenger of Allah, what does the instruction say? Talk to him gently. Gently. Even in delivering the message. Few nights ago, in a lecture that I gave at Darul Hikmah, I tried to use verses of the Quran and the stories as examples for how Islam views youth. These stories that are the major prayers, the heroes within it are the youth, are being used metaphorically to guide our youth out of the current crisis. Musa is instructed, you are the Holy Prophet. We have selected you, given you the message, all the need that you want, all the power that you want, but when you go in front of the most corrupt individual on earth that manifestly represents all evil, speak to him with lean and with softly. Inshallah, I keep asking Allah too much. I suppose every night we say we unpack certain things and we say, okay, leave it to inshallah to hopefully change itself. Inshallah, we pray that during this month we will be able to really reflect not on the verses of the Holy Quran, on the recitation, but to come out of this month, as the hadith says, totally reformed. Have a new direction, a new approach, a new strategy, a new methodology, a new understanding of our faith, a new understanding of our obligation to fellow members of our community and to the community at large, inshallah. Let's end by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for the soul of all those who are deceased, especially those deceased from a family of Samahat al-Marja, and everybody else. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kazarouni, and thank you. Thank you, Rashid. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for coming in tonight. Indeed, if you would have been rough, tough, hardened with people. People will run away from you.
Yes.
It's being used as a business model, actually,
Exactly.
throughout the United States. Great customer service, very understanding, very kind and gentle, keeps you around longer. So if they can use it for business, why can't we use it amongst ourselves? Thank you for the lecture. Separation of church and state. Thank you. I would like to remind you that in a couple minutes, inshallah, Dr. Kazarouni will be asking a question. We are passing around those pieces of paper. Write your name and number and the correct answer, inshallah, on those papers, and give them back to us before you leave. With that, Dr. Kazarouni, would you like to ask the question number 13?
It's
13.
something I just said, if you were paying attention. Prophet Musa was asked to speak to Harun how?
How Prophet Musa alayhi salam was instructed to deliver the message to Harun, to Fir'aun.
To Fir'aun.
To Fir'aun.
My apology.
Harun is his brother. Al-Khulq. So, how was Prophet Moses alayhi salam was supposed to deliver, or did deliver, his message to Fir'aun by instructions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can I repeat it?
It's a one word that we
Allah
use
subhanahu wa
there.
ta'ala told Harun, Musa alayhi salam, to go to Fir'aun and deliver his message. But he told him to deliver it in a certain way.
A specific.
In what way was he asked to deliver? And I alluded that it was like a business model.
Further clarification.
And Rashid is almost ready to give out the answer. While you guys, ladies and gentlemen, are writing the answers down, I'd like to remind you that we would like to have some of our sisters read the Quran for us on a nightly basis, if possible. We've been having a few of our brothers do that. So if you would be kind enough to let us know if you can or will. Not only that, or a poem, if we have enough time for that, right? Also, we usually read the Quran in both Arabic and English. Every event that we hold for the English-speaking community, we always read in Arabic and we translate to English so that people understand what we're reading. We would like to follow that, please, Rashid. I know it's nice. What do you think, Maulana? Excellent idea. Did you hear that, Rashid? Yes. Excellent idea. If any of the sisters would like to read the Quran or would like to MC any of these nights, please talk to Brother Rashid. He's running the show.
Could I interject and ask just a simple question? We are getting close to the first 17 nights, and I would like to hear from brothers and sisters with suggestions as far as topics, so we can address them during the last 4 or 5 nights that we have. If you have any specific question, anything that you want us to address as a theme for conversation, please let Haj Kamal or Brother Rashid know, and I'll be more than happy to entertain that.
Yes, please do. Or you can email Dr. Kazarouni directly at his email, Kazarouni,
Mikazerouni@gmail.com.
And we're ready for your questions. We are ready for your questions.
So far, we've had more from the brother's side than a question from the
I know,
sisters.
it became a habit that I'm always on the other side, on this side. Does anyone have a question? No? Rashid has a question.
Okay.
Should we allow him?
One attempt within the family.
Assalamu alaikum. Recently, I heard a speech by a sister talk about our duties and responsibilities within our society to, read the Quran and contemplate from the Quran. And there are not to be any excuses, because with the technology that we have today, there should be no excuses. In light of the translations that there are in apps and various texts. So how would you go about encouraging more individuals, especially our youth, to follow through with those types of methods and outlets to contemplate and reflect on the Holy Quran?
I think what the youth learn begins with the family. If recitation of Quran and contemplation is absent within the family, we can't suddenly develop a strategy in which the youth would learn in totally detached from their relationship with the family. The beginning of the formation or habitual formation of youth and children start with the role model that parents provide for the children. If the family, the parents, fail to recite Quran on a regular basis, to discuss its meaning and values, to encourage the children to start from early age being familiar with the recitation of Quran and use that as a segue into some kind of communication between them. You can't leave it and then suddenly at the age of 13, 14, 15 inform your sons or daughters that as of tomorrow there have to be a radical change or shift with their lifestyle. They have to read Quran, contemplate and understand it, while we haven't provided them with the means and the tools to begin with. So there is a synthesis between the practice of the family and what children learn. If the families they have clear plan from the beginning and a strategy, this recitation of Quran and understanding it becomes part of that strategy to getting to the goal, and children would learn. Otherwise, there is a proverb in Arabic that says, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِي. When the family doesn't have it, you can't expect the children to get it. Miraculous.
I've known quite a few families that were practicing Muslims. They brought their kids to the majma, for example, but then the kids went astray. They lost it.
That was the theme of my conversation on the other. Briefly, I'm going to.
I'm just saying that you do your best at home, and then you teach them, and you provide for them, and you make sure that they attend all these events, and they come in and pray, and they take them to prayers and all that, and then suddenly they deviate.
We have to make a distinction between simply being exposed to Islamic environment, then learning and habitually become informed by it. We tend to believe that once a month or a few Sunday schools or 1 month of Ramadan or Muharram or something in a year is enough to form, because of the children, to form their innate character and to translate the potentiality that exists into reality. In some environment where counterattack from the prevailing culture is not there, it might be ready, particularly when you have, might be enough, particularly when you have schools complementing and supplementing our life, social structure to a degree supporting us. But when you live in a society that there are conflicting ideas and the child is being pulled, unless we have a clear structure and a strategy from the beginning and persistently use it. These occasional exposures are not going to be enough. And once a child fails to understand the whole essence of the faith that we are expecting them to follow, there is no need to follow it anyway. So
and that goes to you saying that for every hour of schooling you have to have
yes,
2 hours of
Dr. Kalim's
homeschooling,
yes,
to reverse that propaganda, right?
yeah.
Here we go.
Okay.
Rashid, did you want to say something? Oh, I'm sorry.
Assalamu
Alaikum
alaikum.
assalam.
Yes, Brother Rashid is attesting to the speech that I had been giving. You may have attended one of the speeches that I did and here at the Islamic Institute of Knowledge. And I want to agree with that because other than an article that I had published, it was one of the speeches that I had given regarding that it starts at a very young age to build that foundation of faith, you know, practicing the 5 pillars, praying, fasting, you know, paying charity, you know, performing Hajj inshallah one day, and most importantly, believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Prophet Muhammad is his messenger, that reciting Quran begins at a very young age. So these are habitual, as you stated, that these cannot just, I mean, it's never too late to start, but it is preferred at a very young age when a child, if you will, you know, their mind is like a computer, it's an open bank, and they can absorb so much. And with respect to language, I stated in the speech that I gave yesterday that some of the youth come to me and say, you know, I don't know how to read Arabic. So I say, you know, it's a start that, you know, whether you listen to the translation or transliteration, it's a start. Nowadays, if you go online, they have, as Brother Rashid stated, they have the verse, and directly after the verse, they tell you the translation. So it's not like you're listening to the whole surah and then you're listening to it again in English. So, you know, even though it should start at a very young age, and that was where my emphasis was, and it still is, there's never too late to start. So, and it is habitual, definitely habitual. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen strongly recommending the parents to start from very early age, teaching the children the basic tenets of Islam and familiarizing, not just taking them to what we call religious environment, literally familiarizing them with the Islamic principle. The hadith says, do it before corruption sets in and the pure mind becomes deformed or corrupted. So the earlier we start, the better it is. Yes, also I agree that if we didn't do it, it doesn't mean we have to throw in the towel and say that we cannot fix it or correct it. It's going to be more challenging, but it can be done. But we require a clear strategy, clear goal, clear methodology of deliverance for our children.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum, Maulana. It was a beautiful speech. We really enjoy always any time we talk because, you know, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Now, regarding the sister comments regarding all of the traditional thing that we do, from reading Quran all the way to the Hajj, and inshallah after that, you know, after 100 years, you say goodbye and go. I think this is traditional process in Middle East. It doesn't match over here. We do have a systemic issue. The kids are American kids. Parents were born in Lebanon, yes. In Iran, yes. In Iraq, yes. In Lebanon, yes. But they have different culture here. And there is no training for the young people to have, to attend some formal lectures, particularly over the weekend. Everybody want to watch basketball, football, shopping, and here and there. So I recommend the way that you started it, and I talked to Maulana Berry also. Maybe we should start from this center for the young people to have a majlis, inshallah, Saturdays, that you started from here. Because there is nothing real for the young people to do. That is the bottom line. Only a Muharram and Ramadan, and it's done. You know, it's forgotten until next year. So I recommend maybe the board members are over here, maybe they need to start looking at a meeting for the youth people, inshallah, every Saturday, and I believe you are available also. You have one of yours, which is, there are some kids are coming, some educated young people are coming, maybe they need to start thinking about it. Because this is a systemic issue, Maulana. With emotional stuff doesn't work. We need to build a foundation and do it. That's basic thing, yes.
I never stated that this has to be approached emotionally. What I stated was that we should have a clear strategy when it comes to working with the youth. The basic requirement is to understand the youth, certainly, their culture, background, social understanding, all other factors. Language is necessary to be able to communicate with them. The hadith from Amir al-Mu'mineen that says, bring up, don't force your children to follow a particular methodology or way of life that you have been used to, because they are born for a period of life that you are not going to be around. The whole idea of this hadith, if we remove the narrative, is how do we develop critical thinking young generation? That's the bottom line. To be able to create a critical thinking, what is the advantage of a critical thinking? A critical thinker, you don't need to micromanage it. You give the person the macro ideas, they use based on what they have to micromanage and work within different circumstances and contexts. If we provide that information, we facilitate it, and from early age we encourage them to engage, brainstorm ideas, critique, and so on, and become critical thinkers. We can provide them with the basic, leave them and respect their decision when the time of crisis come in. That's the whole idea. Otherwise, micromanage. The old style of doing things, because my parent took me to the mosque and pulled my ear every Thursday morning or every Friday morning or whatever, I have to do the same thing with the kids. It's not going to work, because this is micromanagement. And even in our society it failed. The dynamism that exists or should exist in the way we bring up our children is not to micromanage, but to macromanage. Macromanage means you develop an idea, a strategy in which children have a degree, a latitude of freedom, but with the idea that you provide them, with the guidance that you provide them, with the foundation that you provide for them. You don't need every situation to sit in front of the child and tell them, this is bad, this is good, this is not acceptable, this is acceptable. If they are convinced and you develop them to come out critical thinkers, you've done your best. And we really need, when it comes to religious issues or social issues or spiritual issues, to revisit the whole idea of upbringing children, because we are not providing critical thinkers. That's the fundamental problem. And in today's lecture that I believe you were present this afternoon, I made it clear of the 6 possible alternatives that failure could be attributed to it, from the family, the moment we choose our partners, to the structure of the family itself, to the education system, to the plans, and so on and so forth. But we really need to work hard developing a strategy for bringing up children that become critical thinkers in life.
Yes, may I attest? Won't be too long here. As for the resources, brother, we do have the resources are available. Every Saturday, Samahat al-Marja, Sheikh Abdul Latif Birri has these doors open for the youth and for adults to come and to learn, so the resources are available. It is the parents' grave responsibility, and I've published 5 articles on the responsibilities of parents to educate their children. The institutions can do so much, and they do very well, but it starts with the parents. And it is involved with emotional and psychological. It's well-rounded. You can't cut one part out because it's not a whole entire pie. But we do have the resources available, and again, and I am a parent, it begins with the parents, and it begins at a very young age, and whether it's in the Middle East or whether it's here, you have the good and the bad. So we have a great number of very good youth here that are very well-rounded, that are academic, that are very in touch with their faith. So I will speak on behalf of those because I know very many of them. But I do understand your point, brother. Thank you.
Yes, and the meeting on every Saturday is after Salat al-Maghrib wal Isha. Yeah, every Saturday it happens right here in this hall here. I do have a couple of questions. In one of your lectures, previous lectures, you mentioned that boys aren't technically supposed to wear shorts. How about when playing sports?
Well, this debate has started between scholars regarding how to conform to the need of sports, whether it is allowed or not. I remember early after the Islamic Revolution in Iran, this became one of the hottest issues. Should we ban sports that kids or the youth need to have a unique code of dress that is not acceptable under normal condition, or should we allow them and have some kind of limitation on people who visit them? I think this is more of a juristic issue rather than in something that we can debate here. The first step is to ask the person to ask their own marja or the jurist to find out what the opinion is. But there certainly is a debate.
Is it really debatable?
Yeah, I mean, if you go online, the number of scholars in Iran, because of the issue, became a really hot issue as to how we deal with the code of dress that, or the sports that requires a unique code of dress for itself that under normal circumstances may not.
But the Iranian soccer team, I mean, they're always wearing.
Yeah, now it's the views of scholars have allowed this to happen because they say the harm that it might cause if they were to. But women still follow some kind of code of dress that as close to the hijab, the protection of body as possible. Right. It's like kind of change.
If I think it's whoever asked this question, if you come in on Saturday when Samahat al-Marja Sheikh Latif is here, you can ask that question and I'll give you an answer, hopefully for your need around here. If you recall, we did talk about the Supreme Court ruling. I have a question here that says, what do you think about gay marriage?
Well, we decided that we approach it through a workshop.
Yes.
Yes.
That people would like to hear Islamic opinions on that.
Yeah, it's
even a summary.
Yeah, I mean, the Islam, you see, the night has come out that you mentioned it. I said, academically, there are two views, two schools of thoughts. There is a view that says this way of life is gained through experience. And because
Behavior.
Yeah, behavioral experience that gained. And another school of thought that says, no, it's intrinsic within certain individuals that they have certain tendencies. Islam, if we want just superficially addressed, falls within the first category that says the condemnation of Qawm Lut and others, that this is a behavioral issue that they gained willingly, they decided to practice it willingly. And hence, as such it bans it. It doesn't accept it. But how do we conform with a society that they may practice this? Should we condemn? We condemn the behavior, but should we respect the individual as an individual, irrespective of their behaviors? These are the debate, ethical and moral behavior. I mean, we can become technical. First, define the whole framework of morality. Is it deontological, primarily based on books and references, or is it the end justifies the means and various other possibilities? That's why I said we need a workshop.
Okay, but to answer the question,
Islam condemns it. Yeah.
It's
as a way of life, as a practice, Islam condemns it.
Islam condemns and prohibits.
Yes. And by the way, we are not the only one. The debate, when it started, Catholics came on board and on some occasion worked with Muslims, particularly during the Cairo conference, the feminist conference in Cairo. I think it was 1992 or 1993, in which Muslim community as well as the Catholic community got together and prevented a resolution to be passed by particularly American feminist organization that opted out for lesbianism, homosexuality, and so on as part of human right.
And the workshop basically is mainly because you can't really rule out the fact that there may be some genetical deformation in some people. That they
we have no proof so far. It's a claim.
At all?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's haram.
Yes. Social identity and a way of life or tendencies are, as far as we are concerned in the social theories, are all gained. It might be over many decades or centuries, but it is gained. It's not something that you are born with.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not going to continue on this. We'll have a workshop.
Don't you think social media is affecting the whole situation regarding people coming to the mosque and listening? Don't you think that could be a reason?
Well, social media definitely has a role to play in formation of certain habitual or at least intellectual perception. For coming to the mosque, I don't believe social media has a role because I don't believe that we have an effective program for social media program that invites people or attracts people to the mosque. It's primarily through either the family, propagation, word of mouth, etc., etc. Certainly when it comes to creation of negative perception, social media has a huge contribution. And this is where a number of scholars in the West, particularly Noam Chomsky, has a book called Engineering Consent, in which the role of the social media in constructing something consent and agreement from the community is elaborated upon it. So if you have time to read it, that's extremely useful. In the negative sense, in creating an image, yes, they are effective, but I don't think they have influence when it comes to the mosque.
Okay, we would like to conclude.
Thank you very much.
Last word.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Thank you everyone for coming in. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Doctor.